The 1500s, known to the Italians as the Cinquecento, was not necessarily a time of peace in the land. Although the era of the warrior popes, especially Julius II, was relieved by the appointment of Pope Leo X in 1513, who was a son of Lorenzo de' Medici, the Reformation and the breakout of the Italian wars, including the threat of Ottoman advancements, created a volatile climate in the 16th century Europe. The plague kept making periodic appearances, and the stability of the Catholic Church within and without was never the stronghold it had been in the centuries past. But the Renaissance of thought and of the arts climbed to the pinnacle to what is now considered the High Renaissance period in history. Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Raphael, and Paolo Veronese are the artists most associated with this time. Other artists rose to their perfection under the tutelage of these great artists and became masters of their own time, Bernini, Rubens, and Reni to name a few. Leonardo da Vinci was 23 years old when Michelangelo was born, and 31 when Raphael was born. Leonardo's talent in the arts was recognized in his youth. He studied in the workshops of Verrocchio and was said to have angered his teacher when the angel Leonardo made was better than the masters. Verrocchio swore he would never use color again, since the young boy Leonardo understood color better than he did. But if Leonardo was said to have a fault, it was that he seldom finished his artworks. Recognizing this in himself, he mourned upon his deathbed that he did not finish more work of art. However, he is credited with furthering the scientific world of anatomy, armaments of warfare, optical physics, mechanical and structural engineering, botany, geology, geography, and zoology, and more. His fleeting mind and masterful drawing skills provided artists even today with carefully executed drawings of the parts of the body, both of people and of horses. The paintings Leonardo did finish are some of the greatest masterpieces made. His Last Supper, with all of its symbolism and design conventions, both in color and in the rendering of the human form, is beautiful and unforgettable. And of course, Leonardo's Mona Lisa has captivated and mystified viewers since its creation. He is said to have employed lively entertainment for the wife of Amerigo Vespucci while she sat for her portrait. Leonardo claimed that she was so beautiful he wanted to keep a smile upon her face rather than let her expression go solemn, as was common with one who sat while their portrait was being painted. Michelangelo was also considered an art prodigy at an early age. As a teenager, he was invited into the household of Lorenzo de' Medici to be raised as one of his own sons. Here Michelangelo had access to all the beautiful paintings and ancient sculptures collected by Lorenzo. This lasted for 4 years until Lorenzo's death. Michelangelo was only 25 years old when he sculpted the Pietà. It was so beautiful and masterfully done that when unveiled, the viewers were attributing its creation to other more mature artists of the time. This shook up young Michelangelo, so that when the sun went down, he brought his chisel and a small light and carved his signature across the sash in the statue. Soon after, a large block of marble, damaged by another sculptor, was entrusted to Michelangelo. He was able, to the surprise of all, to carve out an enormous figure of the young David, just before David would swing the boomerang to kill Goliath. While Michelangelo was putting the finishing touches on the large statue, the governor of the city came to see it. He told Michelangelo that he thought the nose of the figure was too large. Michelangelo realized that the governor was standing directly under the statue and could not see it properly. However, he climbed up onto the scaffold with a little marble dust secretly in one hand and his chisel in the other, and proceeded to tap lightly on the chisel, letting the dust fall a little at a time to appear like he was retouching the nose, but without actually changing it at all. Michelangelo then called down to the governor to look at it now. The governor called back up, "Yes, I like it now." Early in his career, Michelangelo was given the commission to sculpt the tomb of Julius II. His grandiose plan for this monument in 1505 was reduced several times, in 1513 and again in 1532, spanning several decades until the final piece ended up with a single facade with several sculptures, though magnificent, Michelangelo was disappointed it had not afforded him the grand creativity he had once envisioned. The tomb also continued to be unfinished business for him and the heirs of Julius II until its completion in 1545. It is said that Michelangelo and Raphael did not get along, and it was because of this rivalry that the commission for the Sistine Chapel fell upon Michelangelo. He did not want it, saying he was not a painter, but the Pope insisted. Michelangelo insisted that he design his own scaffolding. He had it built on poles that did not touch the walls and would therefore not damage the painting when removed. After locking out all of his assistants, Michelangelo proceeded to finish the entire ceiling by himself in 20 months, without even the help of someone to grind his paints. Now, 5 centuries later, a massive restoration of Michelangelo's ceiling paintings has just been completed. Whether or not much of the original handiwork of the artist has been destroyed is a debate in itself, but the restoration took 14 years or 168 months. That is 8.5 times longer than it took Michelangelo to paint it all by himself originally. In his later years, Michelangelo did less sculpting or painting and more designing of buildings. His largest work was to design the St. Peter's Square in Rome, which took him 17 years. Raphael, a contemporary and only a few years younger than Michelangelo, also showed talent at an early age. He became a sought-after artist of the time, winning many of the best commissions. His School of Athens painting depicted many of the world's great philosophers down through the ages, all together in one scene, with Plato and Aristotle dividing the painting down the center. The figures on Plato's side represent schools of thought that focused on the religious nature or heavenly inspired reasoning. The figures on Aristotle's side represent those concerned with earthly aspirations and practical matters. Raphael may have placed himself on Aristotle's side as a bearded man with a black beret holding a spear in his right hand. Others think he might be a figure partially hidden by the front left pillar. Other great lights of the ancient world supposed to be represented in this painting are Pythagoras, who sits on Plato's side in the bottom left, Socrates, Heraclitus, Diogenes, Euclid, Zoroaster, Ptolemy, Parmenides, and Plotinus, though the actual identities are mostly speculation. Raphael's Madonna paintings are some of the finest, most sublime that have been painted. His Madonna in the Meadow is well known, and many others are recognizable. He did a number of images of the Madonna with Child, biblical and mythological scenes, and various portraits. He also worked on tapestry designs as seen in these 2 slides. Raphael, however, died young, at age 37. Paolo Veronese painted in Venice. His art is said to have embodied the best of all the Renaissance ideals. His compositions, no matter how complex, were harmonious and symmetrical, using classical architectural structures that complemented his themes. His figures were examples of masterful renditions in foreshortening, gestures, expressions, and placement. He used color as no other Renaissance master had yet done. His paintings were large, and his themes radiated the pageantry and magnificence of the best in society and imagination. And in spite of his great fame, he displayed humility and a kind disposition which found joy in many everyday events, such as a parade in the street or carnival nearby. Veronese painted for the grand palaces and patrons of the time. In his rendition of the Last Supper, Veronese was brought before the Inquisition for having painted lowly creatures too close to his depiction of Christ. Instead of changing his painting to suit the court, he simply changed the name of the painting to The Christ in the House of Levi, which pleased his patrons, who were proud of the feasts and pageantry of their city Venice. Like most painters of his time, Paolo Veronese also painted many magnificent portraits. Titan, another Venetian Renaissance master, painted many portraits. One of his most recognizable paintings is Venus of Urbino, a masterful depiction of the reclining female figure. He painted numerous scenes, both religious and mythological, and his loose painting style of his later years has been adapted by many significant artists to the present. Palladio was a Renaissance architect who followed the classical designs in his buildings, and his work is considered to be one of the primary influences on later European and American architecture. Thomas Jefferson's Monticello is said to be modeled after Palladio's Villa Rotunda. We end our look at art in the Renaissance with the awareness that while the Italian Renaissance was flourishing and Europe was civilizing itself, in 1492 Columbus sailed the ocean blue, proving the world was round and paving the way for a new rebirth of thought and inclinations towards freedom in a land halfway around the world.